Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the January 6th, 2026 meeting of the Powell Planning Commission. I'm just calling the meeting to order, and we're going to start with a board member roll call.
Jim Winchester,
James Pomelo.
Fred Miller.
John Maché,
Stacy Boxer.
David Fowle.
Brian Harris.
Our next agenda item would be approval of the agenda, which is going to consist of approval of minutes for November 18th.
Make that adjustment.
Yeah. It was on this agenda, it's December 2nd, but it's gonna be November 18th. Minutes. We have a green update proposal presentation from David Fowle. Town plan update discussion with Mike Gardner, our zoning administrator. And we have on our agenda a proposed executive session, which we're pretty sure it's gonna be just open session for that. And then we'll come out of the, we'll finish that agenda item, and then we'll go to setting our next meeting agenda items. Then public comment, and then adjourn. So entertain a motion to approve the agenda. So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, approval of minutes for November 18th.
Move to approve. I'll second that.
Questions, discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
So that brings us to David.
I wanted to just do a quick thing about the minutes. I know these have been done the way they've been done for a long time, but I noticed there are a couple of places in the minutes often where it says, for example, DF asks SGL what the best course of action to communicate with and hand off information to BCRC might be. And that's it. And for my personal use, speaking for myself, I'd be more interested in what we learned than what we asked. It seems like there's a lot of times where, decisions or what we learned are what I'm interested in seeing. So I didn't know if that was a common belief or if I'm just, this is the way we've always done it, so this is why we want to do it.
I think there's a standard that
Pretty much
all the staff is following, and they always.
Yeah, the minutes aren't a verbatim transcription.
No, of course not verbatim. That would be way too much. I mean, when I did minutes for organizations, all we did was decisions and action items. Because that was what I needed to do in order to do the next thing. And so I can go back and listen to the, recordings, which is takes a long time. For my use, and again, I'm just sort of throwing this out there to see what people think, knowing, what are the things we learned? What are the things we decided?
Well, yeah,
Those are what.
I think the purpose of the minutes is not just for us, for our benefit, it's also for the public at large, so.
Fair enough.
So,
Wouldn't that be-
they would need to see what the questions.
To interject, but I will say, I was taught to do it this way.
Yeah.
I was very new to this, I did a lot of my research looking at other committees' minutes and doing that. I know you brought it up a few times and I got practice here and Hannibal. They've reviewed my minutes, just said, kind of keep going. I go back and I watch the meeting and I don't put in kind of the unnecessary jargon, I just put in what I feel pertains to anything important on the agenda items. I'm open to any ideas you guys have. If you think I can do something better, I just want to do it the way that I'm supposed to do it.
Yeah, and I proposed approving these because you have been doing it this way all along, and obviously it's fine. I'm just throwing out a suggestion for what I think would be an enhancement.
See, I'm not super clear on what you would like me to change.
So for instance, that particular sentence, what's the best course of action to communicate and hand off the information to BCRC? I'd like to know, what did we learn? What is it?
The only reason there wasn't anything after that is because I typed that I was watching the meeting and then they never really, I think the
Oh,
topic of conversation was changed and there was never really a definitive answer given.
that's useful.
I think we've gone a little bit off track.
Yeah.
This wasn't really an agenda item, and we had a moment where we could have discussed the minutes.
Okay.
We didn't.
All right, well, then I'll go on to this proposal, and I want to make clear, first of all, that what I wrote up and put in front of this board is what I will bring to the select board. They're the group that has to decide if there's any problem with what we're proposing doing or not. But in the meantime, I brought it to the Conservation Commission and I'm bringing it to this board because I'm hoping to get support from the boards in pursuing this. And then if I go to the select board with that support, hopefully that will help grease the wheels, so to speak. But you all have the proposal and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
I thought your proposal was really good. I'm not sure how welcoming it's going to be from a resident that has all kinds of trash all over the place.
Well, tell me what you mean by welcoming. I mean, we're not gonna go to somebody and say, we want to clean up your yard. The idea is we're gonna put out and say, if anybody would like help cleaning up their yard, please contact us.
Well, you're using that property as an example that volunteers took care of.
Yeah.
I don't know what how it was done, how it was taken care of. Did somebody call the owner and ask the owner if it was okay if we
Yes.
did that?
Yeah.
And the owner said,
I don't know what the order of events were. I know the owner had been getting, fines because of the mess. And so I don't know who called who, but I know that Jeannie had a conversation with them and that's the beginning of how this evolves. I don't know really exactly what the order of events was, but we're not going to go to knock on somebody's door and say, hey, we want to clean up your yard. That could be very insulting.
well, how are you going to pick and choose where to go?
The concept is to put out a notice in Front Porch Forum, maybe the banner, whatever, and say, following up on the cleanup we did on Route 7, we'd like to do it some more. We have a Green Up Day. We've gotten permission from the Green Up Day people to kind of expand how we're approaching Green Up Day. And if anybody would like help cleaning up their yard, send us a message. And then we would have a meeting with them because we want to make sure they're going to be there and participating. And they're going to have to sign waivers and all the participants are going to have to sign waivers. And then, orchestrating it. And we said 2 or 3 would be the most we would do this year because we don't know what's going to happen. And then we'll evaluate it and see if we want to continue it going forward.
I have a question. So why come to the planning commission for this? This seems like
As I
it's
said, what I'm looking
private.
for,
Like if
it
there's
is
no
private.
involvement from the town, like what are you looking for from us?
I'm looking for support for the idea as I
Okay.
bring it to the select board, because I feel like doing something like this, if we were crossing any lines, I don't want to cross any lines. So.
Well, as a private citizen, you can request to be put on an agenda, make a presentation to the select.
And I'm
board.
going to.
Like, but as far as as the planning commission is concerned, as far as I'm concerned, this has no business before the planning commission.
Okay, well,
I'm not saying it's a bad idea. I'm just saying that I don't think this is appropriate to bring to us. We have nothing to do with this as the planning commission, other than yes, I agree, it would help people out, but
well,
I mean, if you want to bring it to the select board, I don't care either way.
and I will. What originally prompted me was reading the Old Town Plan
Yeah,
and how much it talked about the natural beauty of this town being such an important asset.
yeah.
And my feeling like it's a beautiful town that's filled with a lot of garbage because people can't clean up their yards for whatever reason.
Yeah, and I completely understand that, Dave.
Yeah.
My problem with it is why here in front of us?
And if you don't want to speak on it, that's fine, you know. I wanted to bring it to you as an information thing. I was hoping to get your
So that,
support.
yeah, if you're just presenting it
No,
as
no, I'm
information,
hoping for support. I'm
okay.
hoping I can go to the select board and said the planning board endorses this idea.
So the only problem that I see with this, how do you pick?
If we get, I don't expect we're gonna get dozens of people asking. I could be wrong.
Yeah, but I mean, the green updation is a town thing. The dumpsters are brought in. I worked for Casella for quite a few years, so I know how it all works. And trying to pick and choose, if you get a huge list of people,
Mhm,
of say 20 people, and you can only help 4,
mhm.
I don't see the fairness. Yeah, I
Well,
mean,
it's a good point, and I would be very surprised if that happened, because, and, you know, maybe the way to go about it is to start just with, you know, one note in Front Porch Forum and see if we get any response. And if we get enough, we stop. We don't talk about it anymore. It's a good point. That would be a hard thing to make a
How are
decision.
you gonna pick and choose? I mean, can I call up and have the town take?
That's that's
My property?
private group discussion, like you don't need to
That's not
discuss that with us
The
here
town's not
today.
involved.
I feel the town should be involved in it.
So it's volunteer.
Other, you know, I appreciate being made aware of it, but
Here's the cleanup.
this is you,
Around my
this is you guys.
I kind of like
If you get volunteers to help you do anything, you can do that, of course.
I'd like to steer away from, the planning commission being a sounding board before something's presented to the select board. We have our set responsibilities, you know, working with the bylaws, and town plan, stuff like that. And then, you know.
I mean, I think it's a great idea in principle, volunteers getting together to help their neighbors out. I'm fine with that. I just don't feel it needs to be brought before the town as town business. What private individuals do to help each other, that's the whole, like,
I
that's
really-
great.
I would
It's
prefer,
supposed to go.
as a member of the planning commission, I'd rather not be asked to endorse
Okay,
anything.
so then let me just switch the question a little bit. I mean, I think you brought up a good point that we should be concerned about if there are too many people who ask. Are there any other like red flags you see that you think I should know about?
It's not our position to say. I mean, I'm happy to talk with you out of session as a private citizen about it.
Okay, fair.
Yeah, it's kind of not, yeah, I agree with Brian on it. It's really not a decision of a.
It's not the planning commission's business.
Okay,
Because you're an individual, a private individual trying to do this.
yeah, it's a group, just to be clear, it's not just me, but yeah. Okay, that's fair. Appreciate the time.
Thanks, David. So. That brings us to our town plan update discussion with our zoning administrator, Mike. I know you, I heard you mentioned during a select board meeting. You thought it would be good to be able to give us some input on maybe some zoning needs. Town plan adjustments, stuff like that, so, yeah, that'd be a good idea. Ask you to come in. Yeah. Yeah, I don't have any. My only question is, yeah, what do you see out there?
So some of the things that have popped up, that I don't see addressed really well, and now that we're working on bylaws, now's the time, right? Some of the things that I am seeing pop up, we don't really have any clarity on tiny homes. Or, you know, that kind of a, however you want to define. But there's not a lot of definition in our bylaws about somebody coming in and taking on a piece of property and putting in 20 tiny homes. We don't have a lot of clarity. There's really very little. I think that needs to be addressed. I think one thing that popped up, is I think that our, cellular communications and those kinds of things are a little antiquated.
Really for example, the cell tower.
Yeah,
Issue.
yeah, cell tower stuff. I think our bylaws need to be updated on that. We need to get, you know, kind of come up with the times and, you know, just make some changes there or make, I think there's some things in there that aren't really clear. Right? You know, there's some things, you know, on that one, for instance, you know, the tree canopy. Well, who measures the tree canopy and what is the tree canopy? Right? How does that? That's one thing to measure.
I know there was a discussion that got around to a lightning rod.
Lightning rod's a big issue. So my concern about, from my standpoint is, and not just as the zoning administrator, but from the town standpoint too. So when you measure tree canopy, tree canopy is pretty easy to measure when you're on a piece of flat level ground. Well, how many acres in Tonopah and flat level? There's not a whole bunch.
Banks, yeah.
That's right. And I don't have the answer, okay? I really haven't even thought about it as far as how to make that determination. But I'm sure there's somebody that's done this before, that's already made that, and we could probably adjust and piggyback off of that. You know? The village commercial is, sometimes there's not a lot of definition there when we have certain people asking questions about, you know, can they do this, that, or the other thing? It's not, you know, I think there could be a little more, especially hooking up to the town sewer. Right? It's not there's not a lot of clear definition there. If somebody wants to put in I'm gonna be hypothetical, right? Because this has never come up that I want to, like a car wash. Right? If somebody wanted to put in a car wash, you know, there's not really a whole bunch of clarity on whether or not they could, because you got to have some place for the wastewater, right?
Oh, yeah.
You know, I just think there's things like that that are, you know, and I don't want to dump a whole bunch of things out there, but I think these are, you know, I'm trying to hit some of the important points that I've found, you know, since I've been doing this. You know, the other stuff, anything else that I've been working on, I can go to the state and I can get from Agency of Natural Resources and some other stuff on, you know, whether or not somebody wants to do a gray water system, you know, and do a, you know, they want to have just an incinerating toilet in a off grid, but they want to do a gray water system. Well, I can find that answer. Okay. And even though it's not in our bylaws, I have an avenue to find that. And I've used it. But I think, you know, I think tiny houses are something that I get a lot of questions on. We don't have a big definition on that.
That made me think also of campgrounds.
Yeah.
Do we have?
There is some stuff in there about campgrounds, and I've had a person reach out to me about a campground, in a certain area, you know, and it was, that was kind of a, yeah, but you're really gonna have to do a whole lot of things to make it happen, you know, type thing.
Do we have a problem with tiny homes?
No, we don't. Stacy. It's not a problem at all.
Like an RV is not really a tiny home. You know, we're talking about something that's on a proper foundation, correct?
Right, exactly. You know, or, you know, some of them are on a trailer, but they bring them in on like a,
Yeah, check.
an 8x20 or 8x24 trailer, you know, but they make it sort of a permanent house. Right? We don't want to have any clear definitions of that. You know, and right now it's pretty gray. It's kind of up to my discretion on how we would handle that. And that makes it kind of tough. You know, I mean, I handle it, and that's probably how it should be handled anyways. The way I do, in my opinion, is I handle it like any other house. You know, you got to have a septic system and you got to have whatever, you know, or the gray, you know, like I said, even a gray water system has to have a state engineered plan. or, or a state stamp, not state engineer, but a state stamp.
And they have.
Planned by an engineer.
They need a water supply.
And then, right, so, there's things there, but we don't really define it. Whereas if you had a definition and whoever the zoning administrator is could open up to page 11, section 5, A, B, or whatever. It would make things a little easier and it wouldn't put so much. Onto the shoulders of whoever the zoning administrator is, whether or not it's whether it's an opinion or not. Okay, here's the bylaws that were adopted by the planning commission in 2026, right, or whatever. And these are the bylaws you have to follow, right? And I think that's one of the bigger things I've had a lot of questions about that over the time that I've been in here. I've never had anybody actually follow through with anything they were trying to do.
In the recent event that we've had a month or so ago, where people were camping on the racetrack, was there, did you see anything that, maybe there was something that, a bylaw or something that needs to be created to help with that type of situation?
I'm sure we could write a bylaw for it. Obviously, right, you can write a bylaw for anything, right? I'm not sure how we would handle that, right? I was pretty involved in that whole situation. Number one, from the zoning standpoint, number two, from the select board standpoint. And you're on a private piece of property that's ownership is in limbo. Right? You don't know, who do I go to as the zoning administrator and say, hey, this is what's going on? I guess I could go to the bank, but the bank's like, we don't really own it yet. And I don't know. That's a whole giant legal.
Right.
But I think you probably could figure out something in there, and I think that's probably something that you guys could work on.
Yeah.
I think that's a great point, actually, because once it becomes on that private property, there are provisions in the bylaws for, somebody's brother wants to put a RV on the piece of property. There's some, in certain areas, certain districts, you can do that for so many months. Right, that wasn't the case. This was kind of a unique situation. So it's kind of that was a challenge. That was a challenge how to handle that.
The sky's the limit, when you really think about it, it's like somebody gets away with that, then somebody else is gonna do it.
Yeah, exactly.
Then your fields are filled up
Yeah,
all of a sudden.
yeah, and I want to say that I think that as I know people are gonna disagree, and that's fine. I think we had a pretty good handle on what was going on down there. I talked from the zoning administrator standpoint. I talked with the sheriff's department quite regular about that, like almost daily. There's 3 or 4 days a week for sure. We were, pretty close contact about that. And that was from the zoning administrator position, so.
As with anything, there's like state level constraints on what you can do.
Well, that's right. That's what I was gonna say when we get into the interview process. I thought we could talk a little bit about that. But, from the town plan standpoint, I think you could research that out a little bit. I think that'd be something really good to work on too. I didn't want to hit you guys with a whole bunch of stuff and say, here's 15 items or 10 items, there's a couple that are important. And that's probably one that should be up there on the important list, right? I think that's probably good. I think the tiny homes, I think the cell tower type stuff should be, looked at. I think, maybe some of the solar panel, wind energy stuff that's in the bylaws should be, unfortunately, some of that stuff, the state overrides what we do anyways, because, what's better for this, that, and the other thing. It's not unfortunately with the state, it's not always what's best for the town. It's what the state deems best for them. state or the environment or whatever.
The same way with the cell tower too?
Yeah, it is, Stacy, but I mean, I think it, honestly, I think if we had a little bit more clarity, you know, one of the things that really stuck out for me was the tree canopy. How do you measure the tree canopy on a 8-degree slope or a,
Hmm.
you know, I mean, and I'm being generous with an 8-degree, right? There's 20, 30-degree slopes around here. Where do you measure that tree canopy? Do you measure on the low side, the high side? Where do you measure? You measure it right there within a 10-foot radius of the tower? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that, because I didn't write those bylaws. Right, so I don't know how that is, you know, but I think if you as the planning commission were to say, you know, we measure the tree canopy within a 100-foot radius of the proposed tower, being hypothetical, okay, I'm just throwing hypothetical things out. Right, or you could do a 200-foot radius or whatever you guys decide.
It'd be difficult to like, for sighting, to get beyond having a radius to define it, because of our terrain is like slopes, but we can't build a different idea for each
Exactly.
slope that we have, so.
Right, so if you have a certain radius, how it works,
Yeah.
it is what it is, right? And then the designer and the engineers have to work with what's here in front of them, have to work with our bylaws that are in front of them, right? But you know, whether it's on a 1% slope and, you know, fairly level piece of ground, which like I said, they're pretty non-existent around here except for down on the river bottom. But you know, or on the side of that 25-degree slope, you know, if you have a 100-foot radius, 100 foot's 100 foot is 100 foot.
Right.
Doesn't matter where it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think you're absolutely right, Fred. You can't
I guess
you sit there and write, okay, you got a, you know, on a 20% slope, you got a 100-foot radius, but on a piece of flat ground, you have a 50-foot radius.
Right.
Right, that's crazy. That's crazy.
You're just doing that as a crow flies, it's like 100-foot radius.
I guess, right from the center of the tower, you know, if you drop the wire.
On the slope with a tape measure.
And in today's world with GPS and everything that's available, you know, and all the satellite stuff, it's not that difficult for an engineering firm with the equipment that they have to be able to do something like that, right? But I think those are some of the things that you know, I see that need to be, you know, I mean, I think there's a bunch of stuff out there really, but I think focusing on, you know, some of the key things that I've noticed over the years, that I've been doing this, you know, those are definitely some of the things that pop up that I don't have definitive answer for. Most of the other things I can find, usually find an answer.
But I wonder about a lot of times too, is rental properties. If there's any way, anything that actually can be done to help get a handle on rental properties, should they have to be up to a certain code to be able to be available for rent?
There is a code for that. It's under the state.
Well, I think so my opinion on that is the town, we don't have any codes per se for anything, right? For any rental properties. If I had a property that was for rent, there's really no code for me to follow for the town.
Well, what makes me think of it is experience with health officer and working with you as a zoning administrator. I mean, it's like, there's certain things, repeating things that keep coming up that is, I don't know if there's a way to get.
Well, I think that's a big can of worms, and I'm not afraid of opening a big can of worms either, you know, but I think that's a whole can where you gotta have some ordinances in town and, you know, there's for rentals, you know, the state, and I've been dealing with that from both the health officer and zoning administrator for the last, since I've been doing health officer, I've been dealing with the rental portion of it a lot. That takes a lot of time. You know, it's hit or miss, right? You can go from the health officer standpoint, you know, even zoning administrator, you can go, you know, 2 months and not have a single thing. Then next thing you're doing, you know, 4 days a week for the next 4 weeks with that stuff, because it's I don't know, it's like a snowball effect. So, you know, you talk to John, who you know, you got a problem with the rental and, you know, so the heat picks up on it and it's like, I don't know, it just snowballs.
Right.
You know, it just snowballs. So that's kind of a, but I think that's a big can of worms that probably could be looked at for sure, but I think from from what you guys are trying to work on and get a new town plan in place and some new bylaws. I think those are some of the bylaw changes that could happen without going through a whole bunch of research and, doing a whole big giant thing and spending a huge amount of time on it.
Yeah.
Anybody have any other questions? I mean, I'm here to answer them.
You find people are building without permits that you're finding out afterwards? And what do you do then?
Well, that would probably be for the next session, I think, the next segment, but I'll answer that question.
Yeah.
And I don't want to, I want to stay on Fred's agenda.
Yeah.
You're trying to be rude. I just want to stay on Fred's agenda. We'll talk about that town plan and that portion of it. When we start doing the zoning administrator evaluation, I want questions like that because there's ways that I do things. So I definitely want that. Okay. All right, I'm please don't think I'm being rude. I just want to stay on Fred's agenda.
Could you write out all of it, like these things? Could you give us a list of things that you would recommend us to keep looking at? Just so we can see these and maybe pick a couple other things that might work.
Sure, John. Yeah, I sure can. I think the most important one is that the tiny houses and, the cell tower, the energy, solar panels and stuff. Unfortunately, we don't have a bunch of say in that, but I think if a developer of one of those types of energy system were to come in and look at the bylaws and say, man, I don't know if I want to do that because it's, there's a lot of hoops to jump through here. Or, on the flip side of it, that's not bad, right? That's not bad. Okay, I can check off these things on here, but I don't think without that clear definition,
right,
it just doesn't work. It's hard.
Rather than having to sit down and just come up with a list all at once, just let's have a line of communication. Or zoning administrator to planning commission, something pops into mind, you can just send us a note.
I can do that, sure.
Yes.
Yeah, I like I said, I think those are some of the ones that I've mentioned tonight. I'm sure Kate will put those in the minutes, and I think those are probably, in my mind, those are probably some of the ones to work on first, and then when things pop up, if something happens, somebody comes to me with a question, or, ask me a question I can't answer, or I don't have a clear definition, I can certainly, send an email to Kate and Fred, and then you guys can handle it from there. I'm fine with that. Absolutely.
Yeah.
That'll work.
Yeah, perfect.
Hey,
Thank you.
thanks, Mike, for giving us the input. All right, so now that brings us up to portion where we're gonna do the evaluation. Okay. So we have your,
I would probably do this in open session.
okay,
That's my gut.
yeah, I was gonna, yeah, okay, I was
Fine.
gonna ask you.
No, that's fine. Yep.
Okay,
I'd prefer to do an open session.
okay, yeah. So, if everybody has reviewed the job description, take a couple minutes now and do that.
This is for his.
Yeah, well, this is for the zoning, that's for the job description. So this is basically, the standard evaluation form that,
Yeah, that's the one that's the one the town uses for every evaluation form, is the form that the town uses for every employee.
going forward, maybe we create one specifically for zoning administrator.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah.
That free to the select board, but I don't see why not.
So I would just, I'm gonna just proceed.
I'll be honest with you, Fred, I think you're probably absolutely correct, because a lot of those things that are. A lot of those questions on that evaluation form don't particularly pertain to the zoning administrator position, that's where you were going for.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, I felt the same way, it's like they don't really pertain to.
There might be an example on here that could come right from the job description or from the state statute or something like that.
Right.
We could, that could be a project that we work on.
And I personally don't, you can ask me the question down there, or you can shoot from your hips, or however you guys wanna do it. I'm fine with however you wanna go here.
The first thing on the grid here, productivity, uses time efficiently, produce expected work product, completes assignments and meets deadlines. I don't think deadlines really would apply a whole lot.
They don't, other than I did, when I first took over the zoning administrator position, I did miss a deadline on property. Which it really wasn't a huge deal, because it would have gone, it should have been approved anyways. There's no reason not to approve it.
Okay.
Except for it got approved by default.
Okay.
Because I missed the 30-day or 45-day window or whatever it was. That was my first.
Learning opportunity.
It was, and fortunately for the town, and myself, it really was not something that was something that was detrimental to the town or whatever. After review, it would have been approved anyway, or, should have been. So the deadline, other than that, is what it is, a little bit for sure. I cross my T's and dot my I's now on that ever since.
Meet the standard on that.
Yeah.
I got a question.
Sure.
I'm a newbie here and I'm just, I don't know what the expectations are, whatever. And obviously you put a lot of heart and soul into your work and you're a honest and forthcoming person. I respect you highly. When I look at the job description, the whole first section there is about kind of leading the planning commission, which clearly has not been the case. And I'm not saying it should be. I'm just curious about what you feel about that whole element of the job description.
I think your point's well taken from me. I don't think especially when a zoning administrator is new. And I've only been doing this, I think I'm going into 4 years now or whatever. And I'm gonna be 100% honest. The first 2 or 3 years, if I have planning commission members who've been here longer than me, they should be leading me.
Mhm.
Because the zoning administrator position, if you don't learn, and I won't say I learn on every single thing that comes across there, but there's a lot of things that you learn on a lot of things that come before the zoning administrator. Right? I have to research a lot of things out, or I try to, okay? Not everything is cut and dry when somebody sends me in a permit. It's not the guy it's not all the time, it's not the guy who's got 10 acres that's already got a house and wants to attach a 24 by 24 garage to his house. Which is, he meets all the requirements, meets his boundary setbacks, does all his things. There's a lot of times when I have to research things out a lot. So for me, as sort of the guy learning, right? And this is the first evaluation that I've ever had since I've been doing this.
Mhm.
All right, and I'm in my second 3-year term, and I don't know the years, I lose track, but I think now I can, like I just did, I think now I could come in and give some guidance. But at the first point, no way. Fred and John, Jimmy had way more experience doing these kinds of things. The DRB at the time, when I first came on as the zoning administrator, had some pretty senior members on it.
Mhm.
They were the people that I needed to learn from.
Mhm.
And I think now I can collaboratively work with everybody and maybe be that person. But I still think it's,
I think you're saying exactly the point I was actually getting to, and I don't know who's in charge of writing job descriptions, but this sounds like a whole lot. I mean, you're supposed to come to every one of our meetings and you're supposed to, I mean, there's so much stuff in here. It's really asking too much, and I think it should be, collaborate with us, something along those lines, but I don't know even who writes the job description. Certainly, if we're judging you on this, well, there's some holes,
agreed,
but I don't think this is fair.
and I don't want to be that person who said that, but. Like I try to explain to you, right, and I think that, now when you guys, I don't need to come down, this is my personal feeling.
Mhm.
I don't need to come down here and sit and babysit
No,
the planning commission, because if the select board. What people are on with any board or commission or whatever that needed to be babysat, they shouldn't be here.
that would be the hope.
That's right.
Yeah.
So the way I look at things, and maybe it's wrong, but I don't really think it is. I trust in the process. Okay, and I trust in the process and the programs that we have in place. The planning commission, you come down here as the planning commission. You work on something, you bring it to the next level, you bring it to the select board, and the select board looks at it and either approves or it doesn't. I think if the planning commission has a question for the zoning administrator, I'm more than happy to come in like I am tonight and go over things, more than happy. But for me to come here and sit and listen to a meeting, that you're doing something with the BCRC and you're working on it, I think it's crazy.
Well, and so, again, I don't know what the answer to this is, because that's not what this says, and I think this should be rewritten.
Yes.
I think what we touched on that when we were talking to you about your recommendations and stuff. Just the line of communication.
Right.
I think that's the best way to lead.
Yeah, collaborate.
In a collaborative way, and you don't necessarily give us direction.
Is it the select board that writes the job description, or?
No, we as the board write them, then they go to the select board for approval.
Oh, so we could rewrite this and propose it to the select board, okay?
You could rewrite the job description of the zoning administrator, I believe. Because the planning commission is the interviewing board for the zoning administrator position.
Mhm,
So it makes total sense to me
mhm.
that the planning commission should be the one that writes the job description. That's exactly why when I proposed at the select board level that the planning commission should be the one to interview the zoning administrator. You guys deal with the bylaw, right? And obviously there's a varying level of experience,
Mhm.
right? But like any board, there's a varying level of experience. And I think that less experienced people generally have a tendency to lean on their more experienced members for the most part, right? And that's what I'm seeing here anyway, for sure. Right, so it's happening. That's where I was at, that, my suggestion. I don't see why the planning commission couldn't rewrite the zoning administrator's job description.
Well, I think since we're gonna be involved in doing evaluations and interviews and stuff like that, we should be more in tune with what's going on with the zoning administrator role.
Yeah.
So for
I don't disagree at all, that's why I'm sitting here.
I don't think I heard about little houses maybe 4 years ago. You know, this article in the paper, which sounded good, you know, but they have to be a house. As you say, but it's a good concept, right place.
Yeah,
You know, I don't know, there's places.
So I guess I had one question is, one point. Plans appropriately for workload. Related item requirements, pre-assignments, properly gauges and such priorities. My question, did you keep that all in your head? Oh,
for the most part,
yeah, oh,
for the most part. I don't know, I'm not a great person at writing stuff down, and I never have been. I can usually,
I'm the same boat.
I can. But you know, somebody will call me and leave me a message, and I may not return your call this afternoon, but tomorrow morning, shit, I gotta call John back because John left me a message, you know, and I gotta take care of that. That type of stuff, you know. I don't do it for anything that I do, and I never have. Doesn't matter, my regular job or whatever, right? It's, you know.
Yeah.
No, this, I don't know, I just have a knack for it.
Yeah, I only ask because, you know, like in the event you're incapacitated or something and somebody's asking a question about it, it's like, don't know where he's at. with it.
Well, so honestly, with that, I can say that, unless something pops up overnight type thing or at the end of business on a day, Hannah, I keep Hannah in the loop.
Okay.
Hannah's been great, like she knows, Hannah knows. And Tara too, and I mean, you know, however you guys wanted to do that, but Hannah knows a lot about what's going on with the zoning part of the town right now. Hannah's very versed in bylaws. We communicate quite often about stuff that's going on bylaw wise or building permit wise or question wise, if somebody has a question about things that are going on. I wouldn't. And I know exactly what you're asking me, okay? I understand totally what you're asking me. I wouldn't place a huge concern on that I don't have anything written down, because like I said, unless something happens after she's gone home for the day. And I usually try not to bother her or anybody for that matter after their working hours, right? People have families. She knows about it the next day. You know, she knows about it the next day or within a day or two for sure. If it happens on a weekend, it might not happen. I'm gonna be honest about that, but generally, she's pretty well aware of what's going on. You know, if somebody's asked me a question about a permit per se, you know, I just had one happen in North Pownell on 346. I went down, got a complaint that they were doing a job without a permit. Went down and talked to the contractor in charge, the whole 9 yards, via phone. He wasn't on site, but you know, his foreman put me in contact with him. On my way leaving down there, I called her and said, hey, such and such is gonna be in for a permit for XYZ North Pownell or whatever. You know, does that answer kind of what you're asking me?
Yeah, it's just like. Something like Hannah or somebody could pick up. If you were
She could pick a piece.
incapacitated or, you know, not available. At that very moment, I guess, something needs to be done, or she'd be on.
She could pick the pieces up enough to pass it on to
Yeah.
the next person.
Yeah.
you know, say you were gonna come in and be the acting zoning administrator because, right, you're the chairperson of the planning commission, right? So it kind of would make sense to me, but whatever, I don't know, right? I don't think there's anything in there for that, but anyways, she could pass that along, that information along. 99% of the time or more to somebody who would have to make decisions. She definitely could, yeah. I keep her in that loop, but you know, not specifically for that, but I don't want somebody coming in here on a. You know, they talk to me on Wednesday afternoon, you know, and then Thursday morning, they're in here and I don't want her to. Be blindsided, I'm not good at having people be blindsided, I'm definitely not good at that. I don't wanna be blindsided, and I don't want anybody else to be blindsided, I'm not good at that. I don't do well with that, don't blindside me. Come at me head on, we'll handle this, but, you know, so I'm pretty good about that, I'm really good about that, actually.
I just want to make a comment about it. So this is a comment based off of visual observation of his position. We had a little situation that it got taken care of. He was right on top of doing that. Anybody here didn't see that one, Jimmy knows what I'm talking about. Had to go to the DRB for it, but it was a garage that was getting put in. I was actually a contractor on that one. It got permitted to do it. The problem came when the information got sent out to the adjacent landowners and it didn't get to one of them through a computer error. When it pulled it up for, they have their name on 2 lots and it pulled up the 1 lot adjacent to that, not the second lot. So it was a computer issue that wound up creating the problem. But what I visually saw, because I was there, Mike got the complaint and he was right on top of getting there to do that. And the process of following up on it, he was on top of those things. And then getting it scheduled or getting the information to that homeowner to do the process from that point on. So that's something I visually witnessed at the same time, and I think that process went relatively smooth from what I saw. Bills.
Been a lot of action, you know, with a lot of things for a lot of years and, hey, I've known Mike since the racetrack. Family, good people, but, hey, he does his job and, it's a tough one. And it's not a very lucrative job.
He's not in it for the money, that's for sure.
None of us are in for the money. We all show up though. But show up good.
For the purpose of what we're doing now, we have this self-evaluation that you filled out. And I think we will get involved in, the job description.
Yeah.
And creating specific questions for the next time.
Yeah.
But for now, we're gonna use this pretty much. I'm gonna ask everybody here to look at these.
Yep.
And if any questions come to mind while you're here with us. And then, we can even do that openly if we.
I'd rather, honestly.
Block 1, do you agree with Mike's self-evaluation? Block 2 is saying go just put on that way and go right up.
That's fine.
Cause we have to give some kind of report to the like.
Yeah.
So,
No, he was a little hard on himself on those 2.
what's that?
He was a little hard on himself on those 2.
Yeah.
So I have a question. Some time ago, we did a trash ordinance. And I think a lot of us are a little bit upset, and I think some people in the town also, that it's not being enforced. I'd like to hear your thing on that.
So the way that I handle a trash ordinance is it comes through a complaint. I'll be honest, I'm not gonna drive around and look at everybody's piece of property and say, you know, I'm not gonna come up to your house, Stacy, and say, man, you gotta clean this place up. No. I think that's an invasion of privacy. I think that opens up a lot of can of worms. So if somebody comes to me as the zoning administrator and says to me, I just went through this phone call last night. I just went through a phone call last night on 2 pieces of property in town. Okay, this is exactly how I handled it. It's how I've handled every single one that's come to me since that ordinance. And the person says to me, there's trash on place on XYZ Jackson Cross Road is horrible. Okay, and this is how I handle complaints.
So it's a neighbor.
This is how I handle all of my complaints, even in my job as the bus lot manager, okay? Right, for D4. If you attach your name to that complaint and you send me an email or you send a hard copied letter signed to the zoning administrator, then I'm gonna investigate that complaint. If you call me up and you tell me that I'm Stacy Boxer and my neighbor has this going on, right? My answer to you is send me an email. Send a complaint to the town office. And I will look into it. I can't tell you how many times I have never gotten a follow through. Okay,
Because people want to be anonymous and you can't in this case.
so the way I look at it is 2 things. Somebody wants to be anonymous, or you're mad at your neighbor John because he mowed his grass and blew it all over your lawn and you didn't want it because you're having a party. So you're just mad at him,
Mhm.
right? Or whatever. And I don't do it that way. I refuse to. If you want to attach your name to something that I consider it a valid complaint that needs to be investigated. Now, when I do get a valid one and I do investigate, I try to, the way I go in is I try to, I don't go in with both guns, John, barrels blazing. Maybe I'll come up to your house and say, Stacy, listen, I got a complaint. It's right here. John filed this complaint against you. I tell people that. I'm not afraid to tell people that. That's the way the process should work. You know, you got, and I look at it and say, yeah, you know, listen, can you clean up a little bit, you know, take some trash, whatever. Try to work with me and I'll give you 30 days. Not everybody has the means in town to get everything and go right away to the transfer station to get everything taken care of, right? So I try to work with people. I'm gonna, once again, 100% honest, right? I don't win. If somebody strings me along forever, then yeah, I'll send them a notice. And I don't necessarily send them a notice right away. I try to work with people to follow through with fines and to ultimately, and I said this before, one man's trash is another man's treasure, right? So other than household trash, what's the definition of, you know,
Who's gonna say that?
solid waste, right?
Well, they have definition in the
There is,
bylaw.
there is, and you know, so you can go with that, and I do.
Yeah.
And I do, you know, honestly, I've had much better luck with that approach. You know, I just got some stuff cleaned up here in Center Street a few weeks ago. You know, hey, you know, come in and clean the garbage up for me. And okay, it was done. It did take a couple weeks. You know, wasn't done overnight. Unfortunately, I don't think things happen that fast, you know, or as fast as people want to see it happen anyway.
Mhm.
So. You know, some of the properties that I get complaints on. Are in court. I don't have a legal owner. I don't have a legal owner to go give them a fine. It's a conversation I had last night. I don't know who the legal owner is. Who do I give the fine to? Do I give it to the person who says they own it? Over here on this street or this person over here? I don't know that's a waste.
I remember we were having all kinds of problems on Cash Place. Well, a woman was renting it to these people and they weren't even paying rent.
Well, that falls away from the zoning a little bit. That goes more to the health officer portion of it. Believe me.
That's a tough one.
My son too.
But it's easy as a member of the public to form the opinion based on a perception that nothing is being done. When in the background, a whole lot is being done or attempted to be done. And you're dealing with human beings, and a lot of times you're dealing with mental health issues. And you're doing everything you possibly humanly can, but there's always gonna be somebody that has a perception that nothing's being done.
We just had one, we just had a public hearing. The DRB had a public hearing 6 weeks ago, right? Probably first part of December, I guess, right? Maybe a month ago now. I wrote a violation against a piece of property on, you know, in town. And, so that person went to a different organization to try to get some help, financial help to clean up his property. Emailed us back and forth, asked for an extension, so I granted him the extension. Like I said, trying to work with people instead of just making everybody mad and alienating everybody,
That's the way to do it.
right? That's how I would wanna be approached, so I try to do the same thing. And then that didn't follow through, so we sent him another letter. Look at, you gotta do this because you're gonna start getting fined. So he appealed, which he had the right to do. He appealed the zoning administrator's decision on the fine. So he went through the process to the DRB. Once it goes into the DRB, totally out of my hands. That belongs to the DRB now. I came to that hearing, stated what had happened. The DRB upheld the decision. But that's like, after that, totally out of my hands. But that was that process. Unfortunately, I don't think it's being cleaned up, and I'm not sure that it ever will, but we as the town did everything the correct way so that we're not gonna go to court and lose a court battle. We did everything by the book, and that took, I think I wrote the first violation in April. And the decision was just made, I think, in December.
So just so I'm understanding, you said when it goes to the DRB, then it's out of your hands. They supported your decision. You don't have a role in then following up after that?
Nope, that falls on the DRB.
They have to take.
They're the quasi judicial board.
Okay,
The decision that they make is final. They upheld the fine. And they're the ones that.
I'm just educating.
Yep, no, I understand, sure, no, I'm glad for the question. Well, because I hope, you know, not only do I want you guys to know what the process is, I want everybody on there to know what the process is too. It's not as cut and dry.
Well, I think people need to know this.
Right.
You don't know what's going on.
Right, exactly. I would love for it to be cut and dry, to make things a whole lot easier, right? It would make things faster. It would make things a lot easier. You could, impose a fine. And so I have.
Until if somebody doesn't pay the fine. Well, you put a lien on the house?
Yes.
Yeah, but if there's no mortgage on it, person really doesn't care.
So my understanding, we haven't had it happen yet. Although there is some out there, So when I write a ticket to someone for a zoning violation, that ticket goes to the town clerk as well as to the person, and it goes to the Vermont Judicial Board. Now, I have authority to write tickets and the judicial board sees my tickets. Okay, I have a number in the whole, ticket book and whatever. So then my fine gets. There's a lien placed by the town on that piece of property. So when you go to sell your property,
Mhm.
that fine has to be paid to get a clear title. So ultimately, the town gets their money,
But the money isn't.
but the money's not the point. The point is to try to clean it up, right? It's not, we're not trying to pay everybody's taxes off of the fines, at least that's how I look at it. Right? We're just trying to get them to clean up the trash.
Well, that's where David's proposal comes in. Because some of these people are not mentally able or maybe financially able to clean it up.
For sure.
So I want to follow up. I mean, I really appreciate your kind of human approach, and some people have challenges that I really never understand, but we got to work with them where they are.
Mhm.
At the same time, I could imagine a neighbor who's very disturbed by this mess, who feels threatened by that person, who might not want to put their name on a complaint. And I'm just wondering, like, if somebody's speeding on the road, the cop's supposed to pull them over. It's not, you need a complaint that he was speeding. And, I'm just wondering where this line should, because if the rule says you're not supposed to do this, and you're the one who's supposed to be fulfilling on that.
Well, I say this a million times, and you hear me forever. On your way to Williamstown, I go there 5 days a week. There's a place by Steiner Film that is for 50 years has been filthy. You see it every day. You see it every day. I don't know.
Yep.
But the guy is in my store. He brags about he owns this goddamn property and I'll do what I want with it.
Yep.
And what do? It's still there.
I'll
50
answer
years.
your question.
Yeah, it's a tough one. I mean, I don't.
No, it's not. It's so. I don't see it as that tough.
Okay.
Okay, because when someone calls me or it's difficult if they come through a third party with a complaint.
Mhm.
It's difficult for me to vet that complaint,
Sure.
okay? But if someone comes directly to me and I make myself accessible. Fred and I were in a parking lot. 1st of December and this young couple came up to me and Fred and I were having a conversation. And I made myself accessible to her as the zoning administrator because it was 7 o'clock at night or whatever it was. That's my job,
Yeah.
to make myself accessible, okay? That's this young couple walked in, asked me some questions, I answered them,
Mhm.
okay? So I definitely try to make myself accessible. I answer a phone call, I send them out from a person in town. When I can vet the complaint. And I feel I can usually tell if they don't want to file a complaint because they feel threatened.
Mhm.
I can usually tell,
Okay.
okay?
And then you'll act anyway?
So then what I generally do, well, I'll come to your house because the complaint's against you, I'll knock on your door or whatever and say, hey, look at, there's been a report.
Okay.
Of
That's reassuring to me because I can't.
so I'm glad you asked me that because that probably was a little wrong. I don't just throw it out and not, I may drive by your house.
Yeah.
Right, and look at it and see what it looks
I'm
like.
sure you know a lot of places.
I get accused of it all the time, right? I drive the roads all the time,
Yeah.
my truck's on the road all the time. I got 3 labs. Okay, my 3 labs love to ride,
Mhm.
right? So I'm on every road in town all the time.
Yeah.
My labs love to ride in the truck, that's cheating, I'll tell you. And so I do make.
With or without.
Is it dangerous for you to be going by yourself to some of these places?
So if I feel that it is, Stacy, then I'll call the, constable. I have a body cam in the truck. But I'll call the constable or even the sheriff's department. So if I feel that it's dangerous to me, I have an identification lanyard in the dash of the truck. But if I feel that it's dangerous, or even if I've never felt threatened yet. You know, in a situation. But if I felt that, then yeah, we have a kind of a backup plan. You know, like I said, the constable or the sheriff, I'll call them and say, hey, you know, meet me at such and such, we gotta, you know,
Okay,
deal with this.
Okay.
So I do that, you know, and I think that's just common sense, and you know, if I'm going into somebody's house and they're coming out and they're waving a shotgun, guess what? I got reverse in my truck. I'm out of here, dude. I'll be back, you know. But you know, generally, if you, I've found that if you go in and try to be reasonable and talk to people, right, they're generally pretty good.
Yeah.
Generally pretty good. So.
you.
You asked me the question about the fine earlier, did we answer that question that you asked first?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
It's really not about the fines. It's really about trying to clean this stuff up,
Right,
more so than, you know,
right.
hitting someone with fines that may have a financial problem to begin with.
And that's generally right, that's why they don't have it cleaned up,
Right.
you know, for the most part, you know. So I try to be that person who gives them an opportunity to, you know, generally. And if somebody's working with me, then we usually come to an agreement. I think, weren't you sitting on the DRB when I find the person on Barbers Pond Road for building their garage without a permit? Were you sitting on the DRB then? So
We did the same with this last one too. Part of our decision is that they could come back and actually appeal to the DRB again to not get the fines.
if they
As
clean up,
long as it's cleaned up.
Hmm.
We let that as an open option there,
that's right, I forgot.
just because we don't really care about trying to get the money, we want to clean.
Right.
I mean, if it takes them a year to get it all done, or they don't even do it, then it's obviously.
Yeah, they're not good at making intent, right? But if somebody's attempting and working on it and they do finally get it cleaned up, right? And I think that's just being. I think that's just being small town government, right? You just want your town, you want what's best for everybody in town, I mean, and you want. You know, we want it to look nice and clean, and like our town plan says, the beauty and scenery and whatever, right? So that's what we're all looking for, right? You know?
Kind of like what I've heard, finding solutions, multiple agencies within the town doing that.
Yeah.
Like the DRB and zoning, health officer, unfortunately wearing the same hat or wearing multiple hats. Gotta be hard.
Honestly, I think the town, we've talked about it a little bit. The health officer and zoning administrator almost go hand in hand anyways, to a certain degree.
I found when I was as a health officer, it started really working when you and I started working together.
Exactly. No, I did, and I've made that statement.
Yeah.
Yeah, Fred and I looked at when he was health officer and I was first, you know, pretty new zoning. We met in several different places and talked with people and we had a pretty good rapport. I like to think that I do have a good rapport with people. I like to think as the zoning administrator, I'll say it online, but I like to think as a zoning administrator, I try to be open-minded, whether I agree with a project or not. That's not my job. It's not my opinion that matters as the zoning administrator, right? If I don't want to look at a garage at your house, that's not for me to decide as Mike Gardner person. It's for me to decide, Mike Gardner, zoning administrator. And if you meet the bylaws for your project. Right, no matter what my personal feelings are. And I don't think this has always been the case. Then I approve the project. I've worked with people who don't necessarily or didn't necessarily like me a whole bunch. But I led them in the right direction so that they could get their project approved, because that's my job. That my job is to help that person get what they're looking for legally and within the town bylaws. If we can't meet it and they want to appeal and I deny because they don't meet a setback. And that's exactly what happened on Barbara's Pond Road. They didn't meet the setback. I fined them and went from there. And they appealed to the DRB. The DRB granted their variance. They came to me and asked me to lower their fine from whatever it was. So I did, and they wrote a check. You know, the funny thing was, when that happened, they had no idea where to put the money. It had never been done in town before.
No place for it to go.
Yeah, there was no account. It's only happened one time.
Yeah.
Well, that's the process, you know, it's like, I told them, and I gave them the out. I said, stop construction until you get a permit. And the process was to go to the DRB, get a variance, stop construction. They didn't, they chose not to, so I imposed the fine. They still kept construction going. And then the DRB granted them, and then they asked me for a waiver on the fine, so I did. Right, I cut it in half. I felt that they still needed something because they didn't follow the process the way it should. Right, but I really and truly try to be incredibly fair. I try to be open in the Hannaford parking lot, whatever time it was at night. Fred and I were, you know, they just happened to, they weren't looking for me, they just happened to walk by when we were standing there. She asked me a lot of questions and I answered all of her questions. And I told her, I said, when you get ready, you know, it's a young family that's starting out. She doesn't have a lot of guidance in her life. You know, I mean, I know her. So it's, if I can, as a zoning administrator, get a house and whatever for her and her family, okay, that's my job. That's what I should be doing. That's what you should be doing in a small town anyway. Good, you know, yeah. That's what you should be doing, right? She's a girl who grew up here. You know, that's what you should be doing. She wants to stay here.
So I have my eyes on one of your evaluation questions, equipment and operations. Kind of turn that around because I know it does pertain to most of your town workers, stuff like that. But do you think you have enough resources and equipment at your disposal? And
I don't know. That was one of the ones that probably, so your point about the job evaluation and Fred's point about the evaluation form, right? The zoning administrator doesn't need a whole lot of equipment other than a tape measure that'll measure 25 feet or 50 feet. Right? You know, or a laptop, right? To look up, and I have a town laptop. You know, do I need the town to buy me a tape measure that measures 30 feet so I can get a 25-foot? Yeah. You know, no. You know, I mean, if somebody came to the town and said, oh, you know, hey, I need a tape measure, I'm sure that.
Do you use like standard forms, like checklists and stuff like that? You have to have it for health officer, you have to have checklist.
Yeah. No, zoning, I just, so when a permit comes in, generally the permits come in hand delivered. Sometimes they will come in, through an email. But they'll come in hand delivered. Hannah will send me a text or leave me a message. There's a permit here. When you stop in and look at it.
Do you keep a file of those things? Or?
Yes, yeah, everything's on file. Yeah, there's a file here, everything's filed. So Hannah and I will sit at the table out there and we'll go over the permit. And I'll look at it, and then if I see something, this is where the deadline thing
right
probably comes into play a little bit. if I see that we're missing something, okay, somebody's got a new house and they don't have a stamped septic plan. I'll make a note on that permit with the date so that I'm definitely not beyond. We don't lose the timeline that, you know, they don't get it by default, right? Because I didn't, so if you bring it in, right, and you don't have everything that I need, I'll make a note right there. And I don't necessarily deny the permit at that point. I just make a note, reviewed on 1/6/26, no septic plan. And Hannah was really good about contacting that person the next day or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, or even that day.
Yeah.
So we reach back out and say, okay, you're missing this, this and this. I don't have the boundary, you know, have the side boundary measurement, you know, from the property line. Right, and I'll make a note on the permit on that, so that we don't get bit with that. You know, 30 or 45 day or whatever is default, you know. But there's really no checklist for me, other than when you go into a subdivision. And then there is a checklist on the permit itself, so I can go through that.
Okay.
You know, on a subdivision, but a shed permit or a house or a garage or boundary line adjustments, we've done a bunch of those. Boundary line adjustments, generally the boundary line adjustments go to the DRB anyways, I send those over. So that there's a couple reasons for that, then we get the proper mapping, everybody gets, it's not just me that's looking at it. You know, and I did raise the fees for, I didn't do it, the select board raised the fee for. DRB public hearings to $250. The town, we still don't cover 100% of our costs on those, I don't think, but. You know, it was a $25 fee, well, it cost us $200 to put it in the banner. Every time we were doing a public hearing, when I first came in here, we were losing $225 or whatever we were losing every time we did a public hearing, because we just weren't covering the cost of the notices and all the stuff that has to be done. We weren't covering it, so we do cover our costs now for that. You know, we don't make any money on it, but I don't think that's our, you know, we're not trying to make money, we're just trying to cover our costs. You know, so we do that now. That's a change that we made.
Well, that's like. I mean, that falls under communication.
Yeah.
Communicating your needs and.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you know, if anybody has sees anything that you might wanna make any change on. The self-evaluation,
Yeah,
or we can just accept.
Yeah.
You
we'll
know,
have to go through
as
it.
they are.
I'd say let's step that one
Yeah,
and,
Work on crafting a new one.
Plan
yeah.
for the next time, for
Right.
next year or whatever.
One that's more applicable to
Yeah,
the job.
Right.
I would love to see the evaluation done every single year. You know, this is the first one that I've done here.
And, you know.
I think we can make some small changes to the job description as well.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say, just
You know,
redo some of that.
we
stuff.
really weren't,
It's directed.
we weren't really armed with a lot of stuff, but we.
But we kind of knew that going into it, that this would be trying to put us in the right direction of what we need to do.
Well, I think that's where you start, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was starting.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was starting.
put it on the agenda for next time, maybe we can all
Yeah.
kind of get something together and just bring it in and throw it to everybody's
And say, hey, we'd like to change this, please fix it.
in a couple months, whatever, yeah, until that way we get everybody involved and say, hey.
You
Let's throw
guys,
ideas on the table.
select board, what would you like to see from us? You want a report? From this meeting or?
I'm gonna stay out of that.
From the select board side of it, I say just forwarding to the select board that you perform the evaluation. We agree with the self-assessment. that going forward, we're gonna be making recommendations for changing the evaluation form to make it more applicable. And we're gonna be making minor changes or submitting for minor changes to the job description. More to follow.
But don't we want to actually say we're accepting, we're endorsing, I don't know.
No, yeah, we can throw that in
Good
there
job.
too, I guess. Be like, hey, he's all right.
Yeah.
We'll keep them on.
He'll do in a pinch.
Hey,
We're not kicking them out. And we want
Yeah.
to keep them.
I have one other question, because I don't think anybody here has this answer to this, so I think it would be either you or select board were the only one that has that, but, has there actually been any, complaints about what you did at the job? Have people called in and actually made physical complaints about that type of position? For what you've done in that position?
people who like him or?
Are you talking verbally or documented?
It's documented, like, so is that, it has the
Not-
actual complaints come in?
Not Facebook.
I was gonna say, I'm sure Mike's from people, but probably not officially.
That's probably gonna happen tonight.
Oh, yeah.
Which is totally fine. I think, I'm pretty sure that there was one complaint not long after I started that came across Fred, or who had John answer, I'm sorry. Yep, and I don't even remember what it was, but it was the same kind of a situation where there was nothing attached to it. There was no name attached to it. And if I remember right, and this is where my memory fails me, because when they do stuff like that, if somebody had filed a complaint against me, I would remember if they attached their name and what it was about. An anonymous type of thing, I don't even pay attention to it. It means nothing to me. It's like a Facebook, social media complaint. I rant and rave on there. I really don't care. Sit here and do this.
Yeah, I got you.
Okay, sit here and do this, and yes, I will remember that every time.
Okay.
Social media, I don't care.
Yeah.
I do believe that one came in. John, and I don't even remember what it was about, something I wasn't doing something right, and it may have been. It may have been on a trash ordinance thing that I wasn't following through on something.
Yeah, and that's all changed anyway, so.
Yeah, that was,
We
when
actually-
we first started, I was fairly new. It may have been on a trash ordinance thing. But there again, it was probably somebody who sent an anonymous complaint or whatever and didn't attach anything to it, and I don't like that, because people play that game, right?
They weaponize it.
Right, because they don't like their neighbor, or they don't like the person they're complaining about, or somebody did this, or I don't like that,
Well, if we're basing this off of yearly, so in the past year you haven't, nothing's like that.
in a year.
Yeah.
No.
So that's,
Not at all.
that's what.
Not that I'm aware of, always brought to my attention, actually.
But that's kind of where I'm going. I just wanted, there's no, like, because we're gonna do a yearly evaluation and somebody's already had 6 complaints about them in the first month. Well, we should find out what that is. I think this board would have to know or want to know about what it is, so we could do that. But other than that, I mean, if you're not getting anything, nothing ever came in. Because I know I haven't heard anything. I don't know if anybody else. So that's why I was.
I will say that coming in when I came in as the new zoning administrator, and I think I've already said it. You learn all the time about things as a zoning administrator. Not every permit is a cut and dried permit.
Hmm.
Right? Just not. There's a lot of variables out there that, that you have to pay attention to. There's a lot of times that I'm reverting to the bylaws because I don't know the bylaws, right? I don't go home and not even study them. But when I have a question, I use them as my reference for sure.
So that brings up a question. we're looking at working the town plan and subsequently the bylaws. Are they, the way they're set up now, are they helpful for you or are they confusing or are things organized within the bylaws and the?
Are there any changes you would recommend?
Yeah,
No, you already said, you already
Well,
did.
so.
I mean, you
No,
listed
you're
some stuff at the
talking
beginning.
about format, right? Yeah, how it goes like this, like that. So I think, I don't know, how I would change them. If I were to change them. I think that the answers are in the bylaws. Searching, when you first get into the bylaws and you have to search through them, it can be a little tough. And if somebody is not, if a person who is researching the bylaws is trying to do a project, if they're not really good at searching things. And I've actually had lawyers and stuff call me and they couldn't find it in there and I'll say it's on page, I'll work with them on doing it, and I'll find it in there. It's on page 57, whatever, right? But I think they can be a little bit tough, but I don't have the answer to make them easier.
Right.
Right, because now I've learned to navigate through them, but it was a learning curve. I'm not gonna say that it wasn't. So if there were a way to rewrite them. So they were more user friendly. That might be something to look at, and I don't have an answer.
Yeah,
no,
well, that'd be a question to BCRC because
Mhm.
they're pretty much helping us do that.
Right.
And then we're approving what it says pretty much.
We didn't get that municipal planning grant,
Yeah.
so
Oh, okay.
we're gonna get back to maybe seeing what we can do on our own.
Look at them, yeah.
Oh, we didn't get it again?
I think the only people that the bylaws help is lawyers.
What he just said.
They go through and,
Yeah,
find something that, that's not there, it's supposed to be there, and they present it,
but I think if they were a little more user friendly to the general population of the town or a builder or whatever.
Right now, they're set up like rural residential 1, 2,
Section.
commercial, mixed use, and then under each of those, then it has the bylaws for that area.
Then there's a table,
Right,
there's a table in there that, you wanna put a community care home in.
right,
You can go to that, you can find that, where it's allowed, where it's not allowed,
Yeah.
you could dissect it a little bit more, and it's just not, I think it's probably not incredibly user friendly.
Right.
I think it's a little wonky, for lack of a better term right now, to actually navigate through until you're comfortable with them. I can navigate through fairly quick, but I should be able to.
Yeah.
I've been doing it for a while now.
Yeah.
But at first it was like, holy geez, I gotta read it from cover to cover to try to figure out what I'm looking for. And it's on page 100 out of 102. Type thing. So it's not, they weren't great.
well, that's stuff that we can be aware of and we can start
That's a good point.
putting our thoughts together on
That's
that.
a good question.
Yeah.
Good point. Yeah, that's, they could be a little more user friendly.
Yeah.
Probably.
From your perspective as zoning administrator, as well as for the general public.
for the general public, yeah, yeah. We tried to make it that way, but it was impossible.
It's hard, right? Because
You want to please everybody and.
here's the thing, right? Here's the thing, the people who wrote the town plan, you had some people who've done some of that kind of stuff in the past, right? People who wrote the bylaws. We're all just people who live in town.
Yeah.
Nobody's that professional bylaw writer.
Got full-time jobs and we're doing.
Nobody's the professional. And I think sometimes, Fred, I think that people, the general misses that, you have a full-time job, you're here as a planning commission trying to just make things work, right? You know, same with everybody here, you know, but you're trying to write bylaws, you're trying to write a town plan. Which one of you guys is the professional town plan writer? Right? Which one's the professional bylaw writer? You're trying to do the best that you can. And I think people sometimes miss that, and that's where the social media stuff comes out. But that's, you know, but that's another story. You know, but I think everybody's trying to do the best they can, and what I try to do, like I said, is somebody has a problem, they have a question on the bylaw, or whether they can do something, can't do something. Follow me. It's a simple thing. You know, and I may not have the answer today or tomorrow, might take me a couple days to get the answer, but I will find it. I will somehow, wherever I have to go. You know.
Well, I think we've had a good conversation. We've seen the self-evaluation, I think we're in agreement. How we're gonna approach this time, but we're gonna plan ahead for the next time, so.
Yeah, when I was doing the self-evaluation, like. It doesn't even.
Yeah.
You know, like, yeah, your question, do you have the equipment you need? Well, geez, all we need a shovel and a backhoe. The mini excavator, sure. Pass it around. You know, you can have a toy.
That's money, don't they?
Thanks, Mike, for all your input and
I'll thank you.
just
All your efforts.
Hopefully it can make your job easier. Or at least quicker. I mean,
Yeah.
I think the zoning administrator job is changing again, state's level and throwing a bunch more stuff at the zoning administrator, so.
are they aware that small town people or
Sure.
I don't think they care.
small town
You
budget
know, I've been through 7 zoning.
with small town budgets and,
And I'm thinking Mike's probably, you know, as good as they get.
yeah.
And we've had a couple of bad ones and, you know.
When was the last time,
We got this new town hall. Hey,
like, when was the last time that you interviewed? Was that a couple of years ago, 3 years? Is it like coming up again? or-
No, I think it'll be. I think it was a year in August or, well, actually it was late. I think it was a year in September. It's a 3-year thing, so I think it'll be 2 years this September.
Okay.
So I think it's a couple of years out.
Okay,
I think, Brad, I'm not totally sure.
Not sure.
I have to look it up in the town report for a second.
okay.
Actually. I don't remember because it was pointed out to me when. When I was appointed, so, you know, in an email, so. Yeah, I think it's gonna be 2 years. I think it was in September. 2 years ago when I was interviewing. Yeah. So I think it'll be 2 years in September, so it'll be the following September or August or whatever. when it comes up. Again. And, you know. And I think, you know. I think with the changes that are coming in, there's gonna be some more responsibilities that the state's gonna sidestep. You know, that's gonna be thrown onto the town zoning administrator, so I think we need to. I think we need to keep that in mind. You know, there's gonna be some more responsibilities thrown on whoever. You know, whether it's me or not. Down the road. I just think it's gonna be. Right now, it kind of goes in spurts. This year, the number of permits, well, 2025, the number of permits were down. Cause we keep track of the permit process by year, not by fiscal year, by calendar year.
Yeah.
So the number of permits in 2025 were down. They're down quite a bit from what we've done. In the past.
How many permits were there approximately?
Stacy, I think it was mid-20s this year, maybe. You know, somewhere in there. Where normally I think one year we were in the 40s. You know, And I don't really have the answer to
I
why.
realize they were all different sizes, so.
Yeah, yeah. You know. So I don't really know, I don't have the answer to why they were down, but they were definitely down this year. So, but I think. My gut tells me that things are gonna turn around a little bit. There's some things that are happening in town. There's some property. There's some property in the process of being sold. Some different properties in town that are being sold that are gonna be. I think the zoning administrators are gonna be fairly busy in 2026, I guess.
Okay.
Well, interest rates are coming down, people are seeing a little daylight in some areas. And we've had the pandemic that kind of laid everybody low and it's happening again somewhere and, it's just times
There's things, there's some things in there.
looking up.
I will say that I have a great. Not that I really matters a whole bunch, but I have a great working relationship with the realtors. I think they would all tell you that.
Yeah.
The local realtors.
Yeah.
I also think the lawyers. That do the property transfers. Would tell you the same thing.
Some things gonna change hands, yeah.
I really try to pride myself on that. The realtors that are working in town, especially on the village commercial properties along Route 7 and 346. I can't tell you the number of projects since I've been doing the zoning administrator position. That a realtor, it doesn't matter, pick one, right? They've all called me. Have called me and asked me if they could do this or what would the process be for this, that, or the other thing. That's a lot. I dare say if you were up in the 40, 50 different projects probably.
Does the town make money on these permit fees? Or is it just paying for your time,
Yeah, I don't know.
breaking out even?
We did raise the fees. The select board did. 3-4 years ago, Brian,
Yeah, it was about that.
right?
It was like when I was first on the board, I think.
Yeah. So, we did raise the fees right after I came on as zoning administrator. I think, this is crazy, this is, why is the person who's building a. And not that I'm trying to penalize somebody for building a great big house, but. You're paying the same fee as the guy building a shed. So we try to be.
It's not based on square footage?
It is, we changed it.
Okay.
So it is based on square footage now.
Yeah.
But we capped it, we put a cap on it so that it was, it wasn't crazy, but it is totally based on square footage. Like I said, we raised the public hearing fees to $250 because we weren't covering our costs. It was costing the town money for you to come to the DRB. I don't think that's right. I think it should be, like I said, break even thing. But I do pride myself on. I want the businesses that are potentially trying to come into town. I spend a lot of time with that. The guys that came into the run the motorcycle shop on 346. I can tell you if they were sitting here right now, they would tell you how much time I spent with them. I spent a lot of time with those guys over the phone. I spent a lot of time with them sitting at a table to get those guys into town.
For cannabis or the bikes?
The bikes.
Okay, okay.
Cannabis is, that's kind of
Mistake, yeah.
You'll be good question. No, I spent a lot of time with those guys to get that business down there to get it started and try to make something of it. I spent a lot of time. I've spent a lot of time on the North Pound Church, the old church down there, different ideas down there with several different people down there now, and even the lady that is in there now. I've been in that church with her several hours and they're walking around, which she's got different ideas of what she wants to try to do down there. You know, if you were to, I don't even know what the stipend is, I think it's, I don't know, whatever, that doesn't matter, a month. I think it's $300. I don't know. Some months I probably don't do really much of anything. Some months, there's no way it covers what it costs. Okay, I'm not looking for one. I'm not-
$2 an hour.
I'm just saying it's, you know.
Yeah.
You know, it varies. I think the racetracks, they eat a whole lot of time once that.
Yeah.
Is a self help. I think the racetracks, they eat a lot of time.
I would be, I would be surprised.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, I've spent a lot of time with the colonel, well, not the colonel, it was the bank. I had no less than 7 different proposals in front of me of different projects that they were proposing to do with racetrack.
Really?
Well, not the current owner, because it's the bank, but with the.
Wow.
7 different projects.
And none of them pass muster.
I gave them all the information that I could give them that they needed from the town.
Okay.
I gave all the information that I could give
Right.
as the zoning.
Probably didn't pencil out.
They're gonna run into the state anyway.
Well, to a guy that didn't want to be heard from. I tried to call him many times and he just, and we were good friends, you know, I got along good.
Yeah, I got along great with the contact person.
Yeah.
So this is gonna be like a bidding thing in February when they, but this,
It's an auction.
it's an auction.
The mortgage people are foreclosing on the mortgage.
I planned on being down there tomorrow as the select board chair, but. I called Hannah today, I didn't know it was canceled, I called Hannah, I said, what time is the auction? She says, it's not, it's in February, she says, it's canceled.
Hey,
Well, I guess I won't be going down there.
well, we're going down there.
So I knew exactly when everybody else did, probably a little after something.
Well, Terry called me and I said, I called him back, I said, it's canceled. He said, no kidding. And I gotta put something in the paper tomorrow. I said, do what you gotta do. I don't know. Anyway,
Where are we at? Okay. Next meeting, yeah. Any more questions?
Anybody have any more questions for me? I appreciate the evaluation.
Thank you so
I
much.
appreciate it.
Thank you for coming in, doing this and. I mean, it's gonna be
Thanks for
something
working with
else
us, 'cause we
for the future.
really didn't have a plan.
Definitely, back to the job description and stuff. If you guys want me here. It is a meeting.
Well, I'd love to
If I
draft
can-
something up and run it by you because you're gonna know if it makes sense or not.
She's,
yeah,
I think we're getting a good system in place now with a lot of things. Townwide, with her as your board assistant. Things are getting done in a timely fashion. The communication is good. Yeah.
Next meeting?
Next meeting agenda, what's his name? Yeah, what's his name? Scott. Yeah, he's gonna come down and answer some of our questions since like I said, we didn't get the, planning grant.
Yeah.
So my questions were, what can we do in the interim before we can actually create a new plan? Can we can resubmit the current plan? My question is, can we make any changes, any slight changes to it? And use it again. We don't want.
His decision?
What's that?
Is that Scott's
Well,
decision?
that's the BCRC, he's got the knowledge.
No.
they would want what the state wants.
Yeah.
We want what we want.
Right,
He might say, making a good point, it used to be more user friendly.
right.
That is not user friendly.
Yeah, I want to use BCRC when I'm paying them all the time. And if part of their purpose for existing is to help us out, then they can help us out.
Yeah.
So,
So
We
we're,
pay a fee to them anyway.
Mhm.
The town pays a fee to the
Yeah, yeah.
so we're not waiting for another grant cycle. We're just trying to figure out how to go with it.
there's a deadline for getting the town updated, the town plan updated too.
What's that?
is it 2027? Seems like.
I
think so, yeah.
I think it's 2020.
It's April 27.
Don't quote me on it though. I got a lot of numbers. in
We
there.
got one
But
2
then-
years
but
ago, I
then-
think.
You know, we can assume we're gonna get a grant in time for that, but it's like, it takes a long time to get that thing done, so. You know, the more we work on, and if we can do something in the interim to just
Just keep moving forward on it.
make some updates that we need to make now, rather than have to wait for a new town plan.
So he's gonna come, that'll be part of the agenda, that's
Yeah,
correct. We
yeah.
can learn about that
To answer whatever questions that we have on.
to move forward.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we talked about trying to work on the job description stuff.
I would say,
Personally, I mean, I'd love to work on it at the next meeting, but I don't want to try and
oh,
No.
I was more,
come up with words.
I was more thinking, maybe we can all just, well, you know, before the next meeting, we can all throw it on paper and bring it in. Instead of just discussing it openly.
And we had long discussions.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's why I'm trying to figure out what's gonna be useful. I mean, it almost seems like, you know, what you suggested with the sections of the plan, if somebody wanted to draft something and then we could say, well, it's missing this, or we want to add, you know, that, or this part could go away, or whatever.
We gotta find our groove on how we collaborate on creating documents.
Well, I think you have a bunch of time for the, your point down, but for the job description.
We have
Yeah.
3-4 months.
Well, I think even longer than that, right? Because I think you're not gonna look for another. I don't plan on going anywhere.
No, that's.
But I don't think you're gonna
It's also fresh in our minds now, and to me, it's easier to do.
I agree.
Yeah.
Because if you put it off, that's why at the select board level, I hate to table things because man, I hate it.
Oh, yeah.
I just wanna do it now. I get that part of it. But
I mostly think,
You know, I guess my, this, you're not backed into a corner to get the job, but you know.
well, you
I would
better
take
just get the self-evaluation questions
Yeah.
readjusted first.
Well, it's two sets of
Yeah. You know, and then.
pieces of
then
work.
just-
Yeah.
Well, we could put that process into our several meetings anyway, to read.
It seems like step one is the job description, and then it's the questions to match it, right?
Yeah.
So,
Hey, I listened to your meeting last night and it was great meeting and good things with, you're up in the air.
So. It didn't,
Okay.
the recording didn't work out well, so,
Well,
but we have good notes.
Yeah.
Janie took good notes, so.
I found it good. It's very good.
Fred, do you want job description ideas for the next agenda as well?
Yeah, just idea.
Yeah, we can,
Yeah.
it won't be like a work session or anything like that, just bounce ideas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Just general.
for bouncing ideas, and then somebody will write those.
I think the job description will be that's gonna be the easy part to change.
Sure.
We need just minor,
We gotta-
in my opinion, just minor language changes.
Yeah, I was gonna say, we got a base.
Yeah.
But anyway, just gonna change a few things.
No,
Give me
most
the
of
evaluation form, that's pretty much gonna be,
it was mentioned that job description, current one. Was a little bit long, and I was looking at the front page, and then I turned it over and
Yeah.
But-
like, oh, there's the rest.
But the other exciting part for him is the fact that there's gonna be stuff added on to it that we don't even know what it's gonna be until it comes in.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's gonna actually be good, but I think there's a couple places to start on that.
Yeah.
I'll just go through it and we'll see what's there. Change them, we don't need it all.
so,
Okay.
we start our agenda items for the next meeting.
Yeah.
Public comment? No public comment? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it looks like that brings us up to adjourn.
Any motion to adjourn?
Second.
Yep.
All in favor?
Aye.
Eight, you want
Internet.
to adjourn too?
Let's do it.